BBOR, Black Box Online Radio, coming to you from West Virginia. BlackBoxNed88 on Instagram for the bonus podcast. And just a quick reminder, every Monday is Zodiac Mondays. Wednesday is an Ask Me Anything. That's an AMA, so please drop your questions below for things that you would like discussed here on the show. And Friday is an Anything Goes. Any subject is fair game, mostly talking about true crime, serial killers, the Zodiac Killer, but any subject is welcome. All right, so please share some ideas in the comment section about what you would like to hear about on this channel, and let's get started. Okay, hello everybody. It is Wednesday, time for the AMA. Welcome to the show. This is the day where I read off your questions and comments, and we have a discussion. We're going to be starting with the Zodiac Killer, then the murder of Missy Beavers from 2016 in Midlothian, Texas, and then getting to the borrowed question, and more of a free-for-all, responding to any other questions that you guys have left in the comments section, as well as on the DMs from Instagram. The first one comes to us from Kevin Robert Brooks, the man who is behind the Zodiac Killer Montana connection, and looking at his suspect, Donald Lee Booyock. I have an episode out called Donald Lee Booyock and the Murder of Otto Fawson, and that was meant to talk about the 1957 murder of that man, Otto Fawson, who was killed by Donald Lee Booyock. He was sent to jail for 11 years. He was sentenced to life in prison, but served 11 years of that life sentence, was let out of prison in December of 1968, just prior to the Lake Herman Road murders, the first canonical Zodiac crime. But Kevin Robert Brooks writes in saying, "Well, I certainly do appreciate your mentioning our work. I'd appreciate it even more if you'd ask me the questions before you do your podcast. There is very little in those old videos." That's referring to a series of videos that he put out on his channel, and you can find those for yourself, Kevin Robert Brooks's channel. "They were shot way too fast and contain some information that is incorrect. There are also many inaccuracies in your podcast. If you want to use our copyrighted recreations like the Lake Berryessa costume that the Zodiac wore, please request permission first. We let it slide because you were kind enough to mention where the picture came from, and others have not. Donald Lee Booyock was the Zodiac, and we both have direct evidence. We have both direct evidence and circumstantial to prove it. We will talk, please. Thank you, Black Box Online Radio." And I will be 100% clear. Kevin Robert Brooks has an open invitation to discuss anything with me. If he wants to be interviewed, I would love to talk to him about his Zodiac Killer suspect, Donald Lee Booyock. Donald Lee Booyock was someone who was serving time in Deer Lodge Prison in Montana. He was from Roundup, Montana, but after he murdered Otto Fawson and was sentenced to life in prison, ended up serving 11 years, he was in Deer Lodge Prison. And there's the very famous line at the Lake Berryessa stabbing that allegedly, possibly, the Zodiac Killer said that he was at Deer Lodge Prison in Montana. I was thinking a little bit about Donald Lee Booyock as a suspect recently, and what I was thinking was, if I were Kevin Robert Brooks, I would absolutely think that I had found the guy. If I had gone through his research process, absolutely. Because I think it was Professor Stewart who pointed something out about Donald Lee Booyock's resemblance to the composite that was done after the Stein shooting. I think the way he described it was, that's a scary resemblance. It's like scary close. Okay, so with composites, almost everybody zones in on the eyes, and that's the place where they want to look at first. And you might be noticing from the image that's going around that Donald Lee Booyock was not wearing glasses at the time of that prison photo. But if you look at there's just so many details that are quite similar to the composite. The lips, the chin, the jawline, even the lines on the cheeks. And I think the hairline is actually quite similar, although many people would disagree with me. But so you find some guy like that, someone from Deer Lodge Prison, and you find out that he was released from prison in December of 1968. It was December 17th, wasn't it? Then just right before the Lake Herman Road murders. And then you find out that he has also possibly talked about slaves in paradise. Everything seems to compound. And I don't mean to say that that's Kevin Robert Brooks's exact research process, all I meant to say was, if I had learned about this guy, Donald Lee Booyock, before anybody else, yeah, absolutely, I would think that he was the Zodiac Killer. The biggest strikes against Donald Lee Booyock being the Zodiac Killer is that he was not super formally educated, and some people do not believe that he would have had the mental faculties to compose things like the Zodiac ciphers, not just to draw symbols out and create a simple substitution cipher, but all of the hidden mathematical intricacies, as well as the thing about the radiance on top of Mount Diablo. They think that that would have been above his level, even though he was someone who was not only very intelligent, it seems, he was a passionate reader of science fiction, really into movies, which comes up later in the Zodiac Killer mystery. But yeah, I would be suspicious of the guy. But I would love to talk about this with Kevin Robert Brooks. When he mentions the copyrighted photo of the Lake Berryessa costume, I did use that in one episode. He's not even referring to the Donald Lee Booyock episodes that I did on the channel, and there are two of them. There was one called the Lake Berryessa costume, and I posted that one because I thought that Kevin Robert Brooks created the most accurate recreation of the Lake Berryessa costume. It's up there for just a second in this episode, but just to show you guys what he was talking about and what I've been talking about. But I have provided him with my email, and I would love to correspond. Just get the narrative right. I mean, if there are any major errors or inaccuracies that he found in that episode, Donald Lee Booyock and the murder of Otto Fawson, I would love to set the record straight. And I want to hear more about Donald Lee Booyock, not only as a Zodiac Killer suspect, because the ambition of that episode was also to talk about his criminal history, because in the true crime world, there's a lot to learn there. And I've always said that there are two major suspects out there in the Zodiac world who are just simply fascinating to learn about as criminals themselves. One of them is Donald Lee Booyock, and the other one is Lawrence Kane. Although I find that I'm slowly starting to learn more about the criminal world of Arthur Lee Allen, but the problem is, though, it's all just disturbing and disgusting when you're learning about some guy who was a pedophile, and Robert Graysmith already did a much better job on that one. So I hope to do a future episode on Donald Lee Booyock with notations from Kevin Robert Brooks, and he can contact me at BlackBoxOnlineRadio at AOL.com. Anybody who listens to the show can write me at BlackBoxOnlineRadio at AOL.com, or the DMs on Instagram if you'd like something private, BlackBoxNed88. And on to the next Zodiac Killer suspect. There's something that came in about Louis Myers, who was brought forward by someone named Randy Kenny. Randy Kenny was a friend of Myers who claimed that he allegedly heard a deathbed confession from Myers stating that he was the Zodiac Killer. And in the past, I thought that Myers was a credible suspect because I thought that was the key to everything. That was what could solve the case. Myers was 17 years old at the time of the first murders, the Lake Herman Road murders. And I was like, this is where the police went wrong. They were looking for some type of 30 to 40-year-old man when in reality it was a teenager. But that was a little bit of my ponderings that were going in an impractical direction, a useless direction. And I've detailed a lot of things about Louis Myers on this channel. In 2017, I did a 3-part series on him, Louis Myers Part 1, 2, and 3, and then someone was listening to that one, and he wrote into the comment section saying that he was Louis Myers' nephew, and that he had a response to that about saying that his uncle was the Zodiac Killer. Before I get to that one, I just want to share something from Vegas Lawyer, who posted something on ZodiacKillerSite.com. I was just reading through this forum discussion on ZodiacKillerSite.com, and I saw that my name came up, and I'll just read this. I had a few thoughts about Myers. When I first heard of him, number one, he was in Germany during the Zodiac's known hiatus from communications. That's the 1971 to 73 hiatus, although it really is into 1974 when the Zodiac resurfaced with the Exorcist letter. Number two, he relocated to the East Coast after discharge from the Army, which could explain why the Zodiac didn't do anything in North California after 1974. And number three, he had the perfect job for being a serial killer, long-haul trucker. He could commit random murders and just leave town, never to be suspected. And somebody else who was another long-haul trucker claimed that Louis Myers confessed to him in the 1970s to being the Zodiac Killer. But I'll keep going. He had no reason to confess to being the Zodiac twice, 2 statements against his interest, exceptions to hearsay. He told 2 different people decades apart. I read that his grandfather taught him cryptography. I think Ned at BlackBoxOnlineRadio relayed a fact from a member of Myers's family who said that he named his daughter Sherry. That is quite a coincidence. About that, as I said, Louis Myers' nephew wrote into the channel, and the first thing he said to me was, "Hey, dude, you're missing some of the biggest points." And I'm like, "Okay, well, I'd love to hear what's going on." The biggest point is, Louis Myers named his daughter after the first murder victim, and I was like, "Well, you mean he named her Betty Lou?" And he said, "No, he named her Sherry." And I was like, "Oh, that's creepy." But in the past, like for even when I did those original 3 episodes in 2017 on Louis Myers, I thought that the Louis Myers theory excluded Sherry Joe Bates, but his nephew thinks that that would have been, well, it would have been an impulsive murder that a 15-year-old would have committed, and the simple explanation provided was there's no age to be a killer. There's no age for somebody to start killing. And then you can imagine what people are saying about the younger, inexperienced Zodiac, 15 years old to murder Sherry Joe Bates, and then at 17 years old murdered his own classmate, Betty Lou Jensen. Betty Lou and David Faraday went to different schools, but Betty Lou Jensen was a classmate of Louis Myers, and Louis Myers allegedly worked in the restaurant where Darlene Ferrin worked. Darlene was a waitress, and Louis Myers was a busboy. So he had all these connections to people, and as you perhaps heard Vegas Lawyer read off these things about being in Germany, being relocated to the East Coast, moving around the country, all of that seemed to provide explanations. And back in the early parts of 2017, even well before I ever made those recordings, I was just like, aha, that's it. I had my aha moment, and I thought this could be the key to solving the case. But 4 years later, I recognize it really isn't so simple as just listing off somebody's personality traits, where they were living, and what kind of job they had. Another point about Myers is that he did work in a military surplus store as a teenager, so he could have acquired all of the things like wing walker boots and so on. But you really just need a little bit more than that. And Richard Grinnell wrote perhaps the best refutation of Louis Myers being the Zodiac killer when he said that if Myers actually gave this deathbed confession to Randy Kenny, what he would have provided him with was the solution to the 340 cipher. I hope you're having lots of fun trying to catch me. That wasn't me on the TV. He would have offered something that only the Zodiac killer could have revealed, or maybe the location of Paul Stein's wallet, Paul Stein's keys, a piece of Paul Stein's bloody shirt. I buried it at this area, and this is how you solve the Z32 cipher, and it will tell you about that. Or maybe this is the location of the bus bomb that I created that was a dud because it got washed out by the rain. Something like that, as opposed to just creating a very, very well-composed narrative. But I think it was Walter who left a comment about Louis Myers, because after the shooting of Darlene Ferrin at Blue Rock Springs, then there's the Lake Berryessa stabbing, but somebody even pointed something out to me that I had easily overlooked in 2017. Randy Kenny does not accuse Louis Myers of the Lake Berryessa stabbing. That would have been a copycat. Instead, they're saying that he committed the murders of Betty Lou Jensen and David Faraday, Darlene Ferrin, shot Mike Michaud, who went on to survive, and then murdered Paul Stein. But the motivation for murdering Paul Stein is that he killed a taxi driver for drug money. And Walter pointed out that that would be a very unnecessary thing to do, to murder a taxi driver for drug money. And I'm adding in a few of my own notes on that, but just like what kind of person is going to do that exact thing, especially the location of the taxi cab, and you're not even necessarily going to know how much money you could be stealing. Like, what if you murdered this taxi driver and he has $8 in his wallet or something to that effect? Let alone, I think it would be so much more plausible if you had the taxi driver take you out of the city as opposed to driving you to Presidio Heights. I mean, think of all the better places to shoot a taxi driver for drug money as opposed to Presidio Heights. I mean, that is perhaps the most populated area where the Zodiac committed any of the crimes. And that's why many people, including Gareth Penn, think that Presidio Heights, Washington, and Cherry Street had a particular significance in terms of the mathematical signatures, that that location was chosen for a reason, that it has a much deeper literary significance. But the truth is still somewhat out there. And I think that that covers everything about Louis Myers, but I did find something else when I was messing around on the internet and I was just reading some things about the Zodiac Killer, and I found something that was rather unexpected, and this is from lurker.com, Lurrker, lurker.com. I have never heard of this website before, but I think it takes like comments from various other websites and it all puts them together. But a lot of them happen to be Zodiac Killer questions, and I was like, well, this is an AMA in the Zodiac Killer segment. Why don't we try to respond to some of them? And if anybody has a response to any of the questions that they're hearing on these AMAs, you can write in your answers in the comment section below. What do you think about Donald Lee Bouillard? What do you think about Louis Myers as a Zodiac Killer suspect? But this is one from Extra Boysenberry. I have no idea where these were originally posted, whether it's Reddit or ZodiacKillersite.com. It's like I said, I'm not sure who these people are, but thank you to Extra Boysenberry, who says, "Who do you think is an underrated suspect or person of interest?" And when I read that, I had to think for a second, but then I was like, wait, hands down, Richard Hoffman. Absolutely. There's no fooling around about that. The only thing is, I certainly can't say that Richard Hoffman would be a suspect for the entirety of the Zodiac Killer mystery, committing all of the crimes, all of the shootings, the Lake Berryessa stabbing. No, Richard Hoffman is an underrated suspect or person of interest in the Blue Rock Springs shooting. And over the last 5 years, there has been a lot of focus on him. A lot of people thought his behavior was very suspicious when he was interviewed for the documentary. And they're also pointing out the discrepancies in the timeline, or just the sheer blatant luck that somebody must have had. If Officer Richard Hoffman is patrolling Blue Rock Springs Park on the 4th of July, 1969, and there's nobody in the park, then he leaves, Darlene Ferrin's car comes in, the Zodiac may have gone in and gone out, or it could have been a different car that had come in and parked behind Mike Michaud. I mean, if that had all happened 10 minutes earlier, they would have run into a plainclothes police officer. So that really is a very small window of time. Richard Hoffman is also the first person on the scenes after Blue Rock Springs, and we know that the call came in at 12:10 a.m. when people had learned about Darlene Ferrin and Mike Michaud being shot, but he is in the vicinity. And he's also mentioned in Robert Graysmith's book that he attended Darlene Ferrin's house painting party, and he also denied that. So then that is just, the bizarre things also draw red flags. There's just all of this odd behavior surrounding him, let alone that Darlene Ferrin was rumored to have had affairs with 6 different police officers. Could there have been some type of jealousy angle going on with Richard Hoffman? I mean, did he know Darlene or not? He adamantly denies that he did not know Darlene Ferrin, but he's at the scene of the crime, and also his police report will become a catalyst for a host of other Zodiac Killer theories. And I want to be 100% clear, I said it once and I'll say it again, I don't think he would be a suspect for every single Zodiac Killer crime, but definitely an underrated suspect for the Blue Rock Springs shooting. The next one is from Vanderlind 6000, who says, "Did the Zodiac write his stuff in his pajamas?" And when I first read that, I was like, oh, that's not a serious question. But then I decided to think, wait, maybe that is a serious question. And I think that I can answer it. I mean, I'm going to try my best. I'm not a mind reader or a psychic or anything. No, I don't think the Zodiac Killer wrote his things in his pajamas, the letters and the ciphers, if that's what you're talking about. Because of how much effort went into those, I would expect that the Zodiac Killer would have put on his ordinary day-to-day clothes, like the clothes that he would have worn to go to work. I would expect that he would have worn that when he was composing the letters and the ciphers, wearing slacks and a button-up shirt, if that's the type of job that he had. I mean, I don't know who the Zodiac Killer was. Sitting down in a desk, something that was approaching it with a sense of professionalism, because no matter what theory you're going with, one killer, multiple killers, Zodiac hoax theory, the person who composed these probably viewed this as the crowning achievement of his entire life. We frequently find that among serial killers, that these types of deviant acts are the probably in their mind it's the greatest thing that they could ever possibly come up with. So I think that he would have worn his regular clothes, but there is something to say in terms of counterbalance, and this is going to sound really weird, but the radio host Michael Savage used to say that his show was not recorded on video because he liked to do it in his bathrobe. He had like a home studio built up for his radio show, and I don't listen to him regularly, but I did catch that episode once, and he said he would like to take a shower right before the radio show and then walk out in his bathrobe, and the show would start when the steam is still coming off of him. And some people prefer to do their job in that type of super relaxed setting, so then you could just as easily say, yeah, absolutely, the Zodiac would have written those things in his pajamas because he's in his zone and he's in his comfort world. But I have to go with the first thing that I said. That's what I think would have happened because of how precise and methodical that the ciphers are. And we were just talking about the radian on top of Mount Diablo, and also multiple radians could have been used throughout the Zodiac Killer mystery. Concerns radians and inches along the radians. But that was my attempt to answer it. Was Lake Herman Road... Oh, I should give the name of this person first. The next question is from nman8888. They're 4-8s, actually. nman48s. Was Lake Herman Road in Blue Rock Springs used as a lover's lane after the Zodiac Killer attacks? I do not actually know the answer to that one, but my response would be, I sure hope that it wasn't, and not even because some type of psychopathic serial killer could have been on the loose. I would hope that Lake Herman Road wasn't used as a lover's lane because of its proximity to the main road, and by that we mean the parking lot where the murder took place, the entrance to the Benicia water pumping station. When you actually do pull up the images, I mean, it's a parking lot in the middle of nowhere, but you really wouldn't be getting a lot of privacy. And Blue Rock Springs, I mean, police officers are patrolling that park. Absolutely, both of those would not be the best lovers' lanes. And the next one comes to us from Mono Medio Retra, who says, does anyone believe that the Zodiac really thought his victims would be his slaves in paradise? Here's one that maybe I can answer. I absolutely, 100%, without a doubt, do not believe the Zodiac actually thought that. He didn't really believe that his slaves are going to be in paradise. He's going to be reborn in paradise, and those whom he has killed will be his slaves. I think that was just trying to be weird. Dr. Todd Grande talks about this in his psychological assessment of the Zodiac Killer, and you can also hear my response to Todd Grande's video here on this channel about, I think it's called Zodiac Killer, Mental Health and Personality, and he's saying either the Zodiac was delusional or he wanted people to think that he was delusional. I tend to go toward the latter. Michael Cole also pointed this out in his book Zodiac Revisited Volume 3, when he said that this could all have been part of an elaborate ploy to get an insanity defense if he were ever actually captured. Hey, look, he's talking about slaves in paradise. The Melvin Belli letter was another example of that, where he's trying to show that this guy is very mentally unwell. It's an insanity defense if he ever actually is caught. But I mostly think that he was just trying to be weird. He was just trying to be creepy. He was just trying to make people feel somewhat off, because there are many reasons why serial killers do this. The first is that it gives them excitement. Knowing that other people feel bad because of them is a form of power tripping. And the other reason is that if there is this hidden meaning, or they're making people think something that isn't true, then they can't truly be criticized, because only the Zodiac would know the truth, and the rest of us in the general public do not know anything about his true agenda. And he would just be sitting back and laugh. Ah ha ha, they think that I actually want slaves in paradise. No, I'm just a troll. So, the next question comes to us from Red Hotskla, Yeah, that's did I read that right? Red Hot Sika, I think it is. How do you think the Zodiac made his mask? Well, that I did put one image of that up already, the costume at Lake Berryessa, but I'll show another one. And I think the Zodiac Killer sewed it himself. Prior to 1969, so a lot of people have discussed, some people, I mean men, were proficient at sewing. It wasn't that abnormal. I think a certain Donald Lee Cheney even made a comment once about when he was asked, did Arthur Lee Allen know how to sew? And he says, doesn't everyone? Or something like that. Now, here's one that I'm not quite sure what it means. It's from Carnivore Caveman, who says, do you think the Zodiac, if not Arthur Lee Allen, kept his kit? Yeah, like kit, like KIT, and I didn't quite know what that meant, and I think that must be referring to all the items that were used at Lake Berryessa, the Zodiac hood, the sunglasses, the knife, the sheath, as well as the pre-cut lengths of rope. Well, I mean, of course, the rope was already used to tie up Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard and Left Behind. I think I have to agree with somebody when they said the Zodiac Killer did not destroy the hood. Like someone wrote that in the comments section once saying, I guarantee you the Zodiac Killer did not destroy the hood. And I'm like, well, why not? And that person is saying the Zodiac is going to keep the Lake Berryessa hood behind because he would be able to put it on whenever he wanted and relive those types of power tripping fantasies. And the next one comes to us from Boxman75, who says, is there a way to tell which specific post office in San Francisco the letters were mailed? All I can do for that one is say almost certainly yes, because Tom Void recently posted a video on his channel talking about how a Zodiac Killer letter was mailed from Pleasanton, California. That was, what was that, March 13th, 1971, when Arthur Lee Allen got a traffic ticket in San Francisco, but then the Zodiac letter is mailed in Pleasanton, California for the first time. So I'm almost certain that they can tell either. I mean, they can definitely tell something about the location. I mean, I get what you're saying. It's not only about the post offices. It's not only about the city of San Francisco versus the city of Pleasanton. Can you tell which post office it was from? You would think that they would have the ability to do that. All right, well, thank you so much to everyone who has listened to this Zodiac Killer segment of the Q&A, and we will be right back with some more questions and comments that have been left all up and down the internet, and not even only limiting ourselves to the comment section here on this channel for this episode. But if you have a question like that about the Zodiac Killer, please drop that in the comments section below, and the AMA will continue after this quick message. Bum ba bum 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 ba bum 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 ba bum bum bum. At this time, I would like to talk about some of the ways in which you can help Black Box Online Radio. This channel relies on your support, and the best way you can help out is just by listening to some more content. If you like what you hear, you can hit that like button, subscribe, and share with your friends on social media. But I should also say that Black Box Online Radio now has a Teespring page, and there will be some links in the description box. Please feel free to check out some of the merchandise that is available. Almost all sizes and colors are listed. So, you can also help out by going over to the Zodiac Killer channel and watching the documentary series Obsession into Darkness, parts 1, 2, and 3. I was one of the contributors for that, and you can see some other great Zodiac content on the Zodiac Killer channel. And yes, there will be a part 4 of Obsession into Darkness at some point in the future. And for now, let's get back to the show. Okay, hello everybody, welcome back. In this segment, we will talk a lot about the murder of Missy Bevers from 2016 in Midlothian, Texas, but I would like to do a little bit of housekeeping first. And we had a comment come in on the recent episode about the alternative solution to the 340 cipher. In short, the YouTuber Dirt Poor Richard put out a 4-part series proposing an alternative solution to the 340 that is quite different than David Orenchak's solution that has been accepted by the FBI. John Isanor has written in and said, unsubbing after watching this. Sorry, Ned, the FBI verified it. Normally love your stuff and been watching it for a while. Peace, and I wish you well. Good luck. Out of all the things that some people would unsubscribe for, I never thought it would be that someone had put out an alternative theory to the 340 cipher, and all I did was watch the 4-part video series from Dirt Poor Richard, as well as corresponding with him a little bit via email. The things that I thought people would unsub for out of the blue would be going back through some of the older episodes about politics and religion that I don't really talk about anymore, and they'd be like, hey, absolutely not, and they just would want nothing to do with the channel. But responding to someone else's 4-part YouTube video series, I mean, that's the heart and soul of what a channel like this does. I mean, people have content out there in the true crime world, and this is one that simply discusses it. You never know what is going to set people off, though. And the other bit of housekeeping comes to us from Coco Queen, who has been in the process of renaming her YouTube handle, and she now appears to be using the name Z Hunter. Coco Queen was the one who wrote in saying that she was going to send David and me to jail for stealing her solution to the ciphers, and she only says David, so I was like, at first, like, you must mean David Orenchak, right? And I tried to explain simply that I have no connection to him. I've never spoken to David Orenchak. We've never emailed. All I've ever done is maybe read off some comments that he has written on ZodiacKillersite.com during one episode. And of course, we talk about his solution to the cipher as just before, just like I did a second ago. But I really had no idea what she was talking about, and the solution to the cipher that she claims that David and I stole from her was the Z10 cipher, and not only did I have to admit that I don't correspond with David Orenchak, but I was saying, I hate to fail at my true crime knowledge, but Z10 cipher? I don't even know what that is, but apparently I'm going to jail for it, and Coco Queen, who has since changed her name to Z Hunter, has now written in saying, I filled out a form for law enforcement giving the name you came up with, which is probably it. Researched him. If you can steal, so can I. It's been emailed. Thief! 9 exclamation points later, you are an idiot. I really think this is a case of mistaken identity. Either that or Z Hunter, as she now wants to be called, I was going to say something that's a little unflattering, so I won't. But yeah, I have no connection to David Orenchak, and I've never once proposed a solution to the Z10 cipher, whatever that is. I mean, not to be an absolute outsider to the world of Zodiac ciphers, but let's just hope nothing comes of that. Anyway, so if I end up getting arrested and disappearing from the internet, Coco Queen Z Hunter was behind it. Just putting that one out there. Moving on to something a little bit more serious. Longtime BBOR listener Todd K., who has been a listener since the days of the black box only on the screen, has written in saying, have you seen this frame image Aaron Stoner found in the Missy Bevers SWFA video? Wow, I'm enjoying this new podcast, Ned. I just wanted to make you aware of this while it was fresh on my mind. And I had not seen that video before, but Todd K. provided me with the link to Aaron Stoner's channel, and at first I watched the video that had been posted there, and Aaron Stoner put out a request that if anyone wants to discuss his material or to use any of his images to please ask permission first. So I wrote to Aaron Stoner, and I asked him if he wouldn't mind if I discussed his video and used the images during this AMA. So big thank you to Aaron for sharing them with me. The long story short is Aaron Stoner has composed a profile of what the perpetrator in the murder of Missy Beavers may have looked like back in 2016. This is done from looking at some video footage of the perpetrator in the church. And just to give a small introduction, just in case this is the first episode you've ever heard on this channel, Missy Beavers was murdered in 2016 in Midlothian, Texas. But prior to her murder, someone was seen walking up and down the hallways of a church where Missy Beavers was supposed to be about 30 minutes to an hour later. Missy Beavers was a fitness trainer, and she was going to conduct a fitness gladiator morning boot camp, and someone was walking up and down the hallways dressed in a police costume, or sometimes it's described as a SWAT team costume, but in that video, the perpetrator's face is very well hidden behind all of the tactical gear. Also, about 0.8 miles down the road, there is a sporting goods store, which is frequently referred to as the SWFA, and a silver Nissan Altima was seen in the parking lot doing some really bizarre behavior. So, well, I won't even give away everything because I want you to watch Aaron Stoner's video. His video is called "Is This the Face of Terry Missy Beavers Killer?" Missy Beavers' legal name was Terry Leanne Beavers, but she went by Missy. And the full profile with all of the notations that Aaron Stoner has compiled is: this is a light-skinned male, maybe 5'6" to 5'8". I hope that people won't take that and run with it. I misspoke there for a second. They are 5'6" to 5'8". They are currently 23 to 40 years old. In 2016, they were below average weight for a male, and in 2016, they had a shaved head in April of that year. They probably have a prosthesis on their right leg, ankle, or foot. Now, something very valuable has come up from Aaron Stoner's video analysis about that. And the first part is that even from the absolute first moment that I learned about Missy Beavers, like the first video I ever saw, that countless people believe that the person who was walking up and down the halls of that church in the police getup has a prosthetic leg. And I don't think that this is anything that is too far out of line, but there is something that Aaron has proposed that in his video he says, alternatively, they may have a deformed right leg that requires a brace or a support. A lot of the reasons why they think that the person may have a prosthetic leg is because in one frame of the video of the person in the church, some people think that they can see a reflection of around the ankle, which would suggest that it is a prosthesis, but Aaron put forward the alternative possibility that, I mean, that could be a leg brace of some sort, or it might be the person is wearing some type of well, what exactly is the word for that? Prescription shoe or something that has something that's riding up a little higher. So all of these things are things to consider. And if they are driving, they have a disabilities license plate. Now, Aaron is pretty good with analyzing the footage, and the other element that he wants to share is that it's possible that with that silver Nissan Altima in the parking lot of the sporting goods store, the first character on there is the disability symbol, like the same one that you would see at a parking space. I mean, it's disabilities license plate. I'm pretty sure you know what that is. So if that's the case, then that would be completely consistent with all of these people who are saying that this person has a prosthetic leg, and if they're going to be driving a car, then they would have the disability symbol on their car, disabilities license plate, automatics only. I'm sure you can follow along with that. Now, I would just like to turn it over to you guys. Do you believe that the person in the video has a prosthetic leg? Or what do you think about some of the alternatives that people have proposed, that this is someone who is wearing shoes that are too big for them? And even last week in the AMA, I read off that one comment that someone had said when they proposed that it looks like a woman in the costume, a woman who was pregnant but has recently given birth and isn't sure how to adjust her body without all the excessive weight. All kinds of theories have been provided, but Aaron using his own method, and once again, is this the face of Terry Missy Beavers Killer, available on his channel, Aaron Stoner, ARRINSTONER, Aaron Stoner, and you can see how he obtained or had this sketch created. I mean, it's not really obtained. How did he get this composite sketch created? And I would invite everyone to watch his videos and subscribe to them, but this is more just putting something out there to you guys, as well as raising awareness to the point of somebody in Texas is most likely going to recognize that composite if it's accurate. But I put a lot of weight in forensic artists in what they will be able to do. And forensic artists are usually pretty good at this stuff. I mean, you can find countless episodes of Forensic Files or Dateline or a similar show, and they can reveal how forensic artists have really cracked a lot of cases. It's possible that the forensic composite sketches in the Zodiac killer mystery could be very accurate. I think some of them are, but I would also like to point out, in the Golden State Killer mystery, I mean, the composites came out at different times, but with the composites of the people who were supposed to be Joseph D'Angelo, every single one of them had a few similarities, but none of them were completely spot on. And if you look at them all in a row, you can see, all right, each one has some similarities. Like one really captures the eyes, another one really captures the jawline and the chin, but none of them completely show the guy as exactly how he looked. But we will see what happens with the murder of Missy Beavers. And is Aaron Stoner's composite sketch the face of the killer correct? But I even think that something that is a strong piece of evidence in favor of Aaron's claims just being correct is that all of these theories about somebody either having the prosthetic leg or wearing a leg brace and then the disability's license plate, everything is coming together. Then you would just have to say so much for all of those people that thought there was this dark-colored SUV exiting the church. One point, though, in Aaron's video that I thought I wouldn't exactly disagree with, I would just provide an alternative to, is he suggests that the person in the costume is wearing all fake gear, that it's not real police gear or tactical gear in any way. And I discussed this with Tim Coville from gumshoestories.com. He also has a YouTube channel, Gumshoe Stories, lots of info on the Missy Beavers case. Stephanie Harlow even described Tim Coville as the leading internet authority on Missy Beavers, and he disagrees with that. He says, other than the helmet, it is most likely authentic police tactical gear. But Brandon Beavers, the now widowed husband of Missy Beavers, pointed that out instantly from the very beginning. He said very clearly in a public interview, that's not an authentic police helmet. That could be a motorcycle helmet or something from Party City. And I'm paraphrasing, of course, but that's what he put out. He's like, that's not an authentic helmet that would be used in a SWAT gear uniform. And Tim Coville is in agreement with that, but he says everything else is most likely authentic, so this isn't going to be tied back to Party City or anything like that. But that is just an alternative that has been put forward by Gumshoe Stories. And one more time, the name of his channel is Aaron Stoner, ARINSTONER. Is this the face of Terry Missy Beavers' killer? Okay, everybody, thank you for listening to this, and I'll be right back after this. Bum ba bum 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 ba bum 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 ba bum bum bum. At this time, I would like to remind everybody about YouTube Premium. If you use the YouTube Premium features, you can download Black Box Online Radio, take it on the go, out walking, in the car, anywhere and anyhow. YouTube Premium also gives you access to special YouTube original shows and YouTube music. And now, let's get back to the episode. Okay, and moving onward with the AMA, I would first like to give a shout out to the Zodiac Killer channel for helping to promote Black Box Online Radio. On the Zodiac Killer channel, there is a Black Box Online Radio banner that is featured on their channel page. I was one of the contributors for Obsession into Darkness, as it says during that midway break, but I cannot recommend the channel enough for the other episodes, especially if you would like to hear the recreation and reading of all the Zodiac letters. You can also hear that on the channel next Halloween, but that is on the Zodiac Killer channel as well, and they have some great suspect profiles over there. Now, to pick up with one more piece of info about the Missy Beavers case, because you are still seeing that composite sketch going across the screen during the video, is that Aaron Stoner has written an email here that says, one thing I want to make sure people understand is that the age range is just my best guess. I genuinely believe that this is a younger person, age 18 to 35, based off other photos I have seen, and their extremely odd, childlike behavior, but it is completely possible that the person is 40 to 60. The key thing is to look for a light-skinned male who is 5'6" to 5'8", and has a distinct, slender, hook nose, aka a witch nose, a disability license plate, and the biggest giveaway is going to be a prosthetic or severely deformed leg. Missy's killer cannot hide this disability, and this is a long-term injury, and a limp will be noticeable. A limp, or we should also say just the unusual gait, the unusual walking stride. A limp will be noticeable. If someone fits most of this criteria and they live in Texas or a neighboring state, listeners should call the tip line. There is a $150,000 reward for the capture of this dirtbag. If you need any more information, let me know. Okay, big thank you once again to Aaron Stoner, and everybody please pay attention to the composite sketch, and you heard Aaron's info there. But one last note on that is Aaron's next message to me said, though, thanks for spreading the word. I am certain there are several people out there who know this person. Persons who work in podiatry, orthotics, and physical rehabilitation fields may be in contact with this guy on a regular basis. I mean, if somebody has a prosthetic leg, or, as we said, wearing a leg brace, or something like that, then yes, absolutely, they would be familiar with people who are podiatrists or working with physical rehabilitation. They would be the kind of people that are going to know who that would be. The composite sketch plus the car, the silver Nissan Altima, as well as the disabilities license plate. So, one more time, you can visit Aaron Stoner's channel to watch his video in full detail to find out how he composed, or how he had the sketch created. Next, moving on to some of the user comments. We had a couple that came to us from the Cat Meow. One of them actually was accusing me of deleting the comments again because I don't want people to see them. No, that isn't me. That is the YouTube censors, and, well, I think you can find out why once we go through these two comments left from Cat Meow that say, the comparison between the Zodiac and Jack the Ripper is not related to any time frame, dates, zero to do with dates. What it does have to do with is the child that was born to one of the hookers and she got pregnant by the prince. A cover-up. They didn't want it to get out. A child who belonged to the prince, in other words, a cover-up of him having, it actually said sex with a whore. Sound familiar, Ned? Have a nice day, everyone. And I did repost that one on there, although I did have to take out the words sex and whore. I mean, I reposted it once and the YouTube censors automatically deleted it. I will repeat myself. The YouTube censors are very sensitive to these types of keywords and this type of information. Even harmless, benign comments get deleted. But, yeah, so people, I guess that's something to keep in mind. And I want to also reinforce, I've probably deleted less than 5 or maybe 6 or 7 comments. I don't even know how many, but very, very few comments have ever been deleted by me personally. Most of it is the YouTube censors, those automatic, auto-deleted bots, whatever they are. They're the ones making all the trouble. So, but in response to this comment here about, this theory was something that was discussed in a couple of the episodes here on this channel, that Prince Eddie had a relationship with one of the women who was murdered by Jack the Ripper, or one of the victims in the Ripper case, actually, because then that just begs the question, if this is all just some cover-up from the royal family, then who actually committed the murders? Are the murders and the mutilations done by the same person? And when Kat was the source material for an episode on the channel called Zodiac Killer Merchant Marine Theory, we looked at an example of a Zodiac theory where someone was stating that everything is centered on Darlene Ferrin, the second woman to have been killed by the Zodiac Killer, and then other murders were committed to confuse the authorities, to deceive people, to make people think that this is all some type of calculated serial killer, and it is, except it's not just about committing murders. Darlene Ferrin was the major target, and then everything else is just a diversion. Somebody replied in the comments section saying, that's actually a theory that is also used in the Jack the Ripper mystery, but it isn't the second victim, it is Mary Kelly, who is the final victim. And you can see that those two theories are quite similar. And someone is having an affair with Darlene Ferrin in Kat's theory, Zodiac Killer, Merchant Marine theory. This much older Merchant Marine doesn't want that story to come out. And then he was behind the murder of Darlene Ferrin as well as the other Zodiac victims. That's the long story short. But there's actually a more fascinating question that Kat left in. I said that she had 2. And this one here is, How do you decipher whether or not someone is crazy or has mental problems? Just curious. Thanks, Ned. Okay, so questions that I actually can't answer. She was talking about in an instance once where I asked somebody, have you ever been diagnosed with a mental disorder? And that was my simple response at that time. But firstly, how do you decipher whether or not someone is crazy? Crazy is such an abstract, open-ended term. I wouldn't even really think there'd be any way to actually quantify that and put it into some type of classification. All right, you are crazy. But how would you find out if somebody had mental problems or not? Like, what would be the answer to that question? And I am not a psychologist, I am not a psychiatrist, I am not a medical doctor. They have their own system for that, and what they do is they look at certain behaviors that are on a classification list, and if this person meets these certain behavioral criteria, then they have a mental illness. It's pretty much going through a checklist, and if this person is exhibiting these behaviors, then they have this type of mental illness or that type of mental illness. And Thomas Sachs pointed out in The Myth of Mental Illness that these definitions are constantly evolving, like certain lines can be added in and certain things can be taken out. So that's why it's called the myth of mental illness, because it's not anything that is completely set in stone or ingrained in the human neurological process. The definitions are constantly evolving. But what I would do is, as someone who is not a medical doctor or psychologist, I would also look at their behavioral patterns. And if I were to evaluate someone just in my life, like am I talking to somebody on the street or someone who's even just sending me text messages or emails, what would I do in response to that? The first is I would look at how paranoid they seem. Paranoia would be a big one. Another one would be worrying, like neuroticism. Does this person seem very uncertain of what they're saying? Does this person have very intense emotions? Are they experiencing very intense highs and lows to the point where you cannot follow what they're saying in a conversation because they get super excited, then they get either super sad or super angry? These types of changes would lead me to think that someone is somewhat mentally unwell. And I did an episode once back when I talked more about psychology in a general way, and I said that I've come to the conclusion that when you look at those little mental health pamphlets that they pass out, either at the doctor's office, or I was actually reading a poster that had been put up by the university that I went to, and it talked about being mentally ill or a mental illness. I mean, firstly, mental illness means you meet the classifications of behaviors as laid out by the DSM. Mentally ill, I just interpreted that as destructive behavior. That's what they're talking about, destructive or dangerous behavior. Does this person seem destructive or dangerous? And if so, then that's what they mean by mentally ill. I also have this hypothesis out there, I repeat hypothesis, that the entire psychological community is using all kinds of words. For the next question, we have one that comes to us from Amanda Francis, who says, for the AMA, have you ever heard of the Hare Krishna murders? And my short answer to that is no, I have not. But Amanda continues by saying, I am reading a book now called Killing for Krishna, The Danger of Deranged Devotion. I feel the psychology of an ordinary person being convinced to kill might be a fascinating topic for an episode. Okay, I can respond to that second part there. While I'm not familiar with this exact set of murders that Amanda's referring to, now I'm going to reference somebody who might seem controversial to some people, and he might seem like an absolute hero to other people, and his name is Sam Harris, because he talked about this exact subject. And Sam Harris, of course, the author of the book Waking Up, hosts a podcast of the same name. He did another book called Lies, The Moral Landscape. And his response was, under certain conditions, almost everybody is capable of killing, even committing murder, or torture. And a mystery that he wants to explore is, which conditions would certain people behave under that. Like for you, maybe the conditions that would drive you to commit a murder would be different than what would drive me to do that. But in short, he believes that most people have that in them. And some people even think that at a certain point in life, you are going to contemplate murdering someone. But other people, like as we said, if being mentally ill is destructive behavior, they would be like, absolutely not. I mean, that is totally not the case. Anyone who actually has a healthy functioning brain would not be thinking those things. It is not completely certain. But the psychology of an ordinary person being convinced to kill, you would really want to expect that there would be some type of pressure, but I think that this is suggesting that there is some type of cult leadership going on. Not saying the Hare Krishnas are a cult, I don't really know that much about them. However, in terms of the cult leader mentality, back in some of those old gray box recordings that you can find on the channel, I put forward a condensed version of some points that were laid out by Sean McCraney on cult leadership, and it says very clearly that the first thing a cult leader does is they discredit the ways of the past. The second thing they do is they produce a new way, usually in the form of a book, but it can be created in another way. And the third thing they do is they tell you that there is something missing in your life, and the only way to obtain that is through this new way that they've created, it could be something as simple as you are not loved, and the only way to be loved is to follow whatever it is I tell you to do. Kill these people because Charles Manson told you to, and that's a very extreme statement. Or maybe drink the Kool-Aid because Jim Jones told you to. There could be a little bit more to those stories there, the Manson family as well as Jim Jones, but you can get the idea about what would drive somebody to do that. Slow and gradual elements of conditioning, because they felt that something was missing in their life, and somebody exploited that weakness. It really is quite fascinating, but there are guys like Sam Harris out there who would say all of us would have something that we are missing in life, and the average person isn't going to sit around and contemplate murder, but the average person is also not perfect. There is going to be something that maybe some people could zone in on, and someone could offer as well. I was talking about this back in college once with somebody who was really into Adolf Hitler, and she turned out to be a very unfriendly person, because it turns out a fascination with Hitler and being friendly are not always in the same place. But what she said was, it is so fascinating yet appalling at the same time that Hitler was able to rise to power. Now, why would that happen? And I was like, well, most people say that Hitler was a very charismatic leader. Yes, of course, he did some things that many people view as evil, but he was charismatic. Everybody thinks that Hitler was a charismatic political leader. But her response was, it can't only be charisma. Just because somebody is charismatic, it doesn't mean that people are going to start killing because they want you to. And I don't mean to challenge anybody's conception of Hitler. I'm sure some of the World War II buffs out there are immediately thinking about saying some things. But just as a fundamental example, as a theoretical example, what is the difference between someone being charismatic and persuades you to like them versus someone convincing you that you should take that extreme step and commit something like murder? And I think it is a lot of that, like zoning in on someone's either weakness or desire. Because throughout these discussions that Sam Harris would have, he also was challenged on this by saying that you seem to fail to neglect that people have this desire for glory, and if they believe that there is going to be some type of glorification of their own image, then they're going to do something like commit a murder if it allows them to make themselves feel like they are now at a superior level to that of other people, or they've done something that will allow them to achieve fame, recognition, notoriety, and all of these other things, or they're frustrated with the boring, mundane aspects of their life, and then they want to use this, whatever it is, whether it's the cult leader or some type of belief system or some type of thing that's outside of conventional life, to accelerate their own self-image. So that would be my short answer to that question there. Moving on to something absolutely lighter. I often begin these AMAs with a borrowed question, and this comes from the YouTube channel Metal Scar, who I'll just ask a condensed version of their question. Out of these shows, which one do you like the most? The Simpsons, Family Guy, Rick and Morty, Bob's Burgers, or South Park? And anybody can weigh in on this one in the comment section. If you are listening this far into the episode and you haven't written a comment yet, please respond to this one. Which one do you like the most? The Simpsons, Family Guy, Rick and Morty, Bob's Burgers, or South Park? Hands down, I have to choose The Simpsons, only because of longevity's sake. Back in 2017, I went through a very intense Simpsons phase. It all started because I was actually watching videos from Henry Kissinger, listening to his speeches, as well as some of the other conspiratorial things, talking about how he is the most powerful person in the New World Order. And then there was this episode where Henry Kissinger is a caricature on The Simpsons, if that is the best way to describe it. Well, he appeared on The Simpsons, and he dropped his glasses in the toilet, and that just turned into like a 2-month spree of binge-watching The Simpsons. So I did that in 2017. With some of these other names on the list, though, Family Guy, I ended up doing that in 2018, just going through months of watching Family Guy, Peter Griffin, and all. And in 2019, I did it with Bob's Burgers. And I actually ended up citing an episode of Bob's Burgers on one of the old Gray Box recordings. I was talking about the mansion murders that took place in the D.C., Maryland area that were committed by an individual named Darren Wint, allegedly. And there's this possibility that someone's in a hostage situation and they had a pizza delivered, and I was like, who on earth would ever deliver a pizza? And then, just as I said it while I was recording, like the way I am now, this idea came to mind. I was like, holy crap, they did that on Bob's Burgers. There's this bank robbery hostage situation, and they ordered Jimmy Pesto's pizza. Oh my gosh, I never thought of that. I mean, just sharing some BBOR trivia for you. Yeah, no one's ever going to ask about that, but shared it all the same. With The Simpsons, though, growing up, I got into passionate discussions about who was the funniest character on The Simpsons. Some people really tried to persuade me that Bart Simpson is the funniest character, and of course, maybe there are 2 or 3 people out there that actually like Lisa Simpson, I kid thee not. But I insisted that it was Homer. I was like, Homer's the funniest character on The Simpsons. That was prior to 2017 when I went through this massive binge-watching spree, and I learned about Krusty the Clown, and I recognized Krusty is absolutely the funniest character on The Simpsons. And currently, I've been watching several of the episodes, although not the full things, like those condensed YouTube versions. And a lot of people have been saying in the comment section that they really like Marge's sisters Patty and Selma, and they're pretty good at roasting, but it's much like the comedian Jeff Ross, only funny at the roasts. For a full episode, you don't want to see that all the time. I invite anyone, though, to watch the best moments of Krusty the Clown, and you will find out that there are just so many different levels of humor. And back in the days when I was growing up, The Simpsons really just had so much heart and soul, maybe even up to season 10, 11, 12. It was a show that had this excellent balance between very rough humor, but also had this really gentle side where there's actually genuine appreciation for family life. And Dr. Jordan Peterson even talked about this when he said, the reason why you like Homer Simpson is because he's a bumbling oaf, but he still recognizes the need to provide for his family, and he still goes to work at the power plant every day. But I was actually just watching an episode of The Simpsons where Maggie is about to slide into a fan and get chopped to pieces by the fan blades, and then Homer rescues her at the last second, and they just don't even talk about that. But it's almost certain that Maggie Simpson was Homer Simpson's favorite. If you don't watch The Simpsons, I don't mean to bore you too much, so I'll go on to our next question. And in addition to the borrowed questions, I've also been doing a weekly question about psychology that comes into Quora. They just send these things to me, and normally they're about narcissism, but this one was just a question of self-reflection, and it was, what things should you not try in life? Wow, talk about a big question. What things should you not try in life? And number one, it says, first there's an answer that has been written by Lewis Wallace. I will read off the answer and then I will respond to it myself, or why don't we just go through it point by point? Number one, never try to impress people who could not care less about you. Okay, that's something you should try. I agree there. Number two, never try to imitate anyone or be anything other than yourself. I can kind of agree with that one 50%, though, although sometimes you're going to have to learn from someone more virtuous than you. I mean, sometimes you are going to have to learn from someone, and you will have to imitate someone who is different than you. I was actually just reading something that's in the exact opposite direction. In fact, it's a contradiction to this one, a challenge to this question, actually. And it said that if you want to become more assertive, observe people, find out how they are assertive. Like, if you see someone being assertive, learn from those types of behaviors and try to work that in to your daily life. So that actually says that you can imitate people, you can emulate from people. But in regards to imitation, I think what this statement here is saying, never imitate anyone or be anything other than yourself. What I think this is going at is that I had to learn this lesson the hard way. One of the biggest problems with my late teens and early 20s was that I would watch a lot of weird TV shows like BBC America, independent films, things that nobody else at school or at college had ever heard of. And then I would always be imitating the characters that are on these TV shows, or you just throw the line into conversation, something that I had heard in that movie or in that TV show, and other people didn't get the reference. In short, I was acting like the characters on those weird movies and TV shows. And if people had known that I was referencing a movie or referencing a TV show, they probably wouldn't have thought that it was so crazy. But because they didn't, they thought that that was just my personality, and I was acting really weird. And this is something else, though, that people need to understand, is that that is funny because it's on TV. That's funny because it's in a movie. And you're not actually living with the person who is doing those obnoxious things. Think about all the characters that we just mentioned, whether it's Homer Simpson or Peter Griffin or Louise Belcher from Bob's Burgers, or how about Eric Cartman from South Park? South Park was also on that list. I could actually go in an enormous spiel about South Park versus The Simpsons versus Family Guy, but I said I wouldn't do that. Okay, so the point is, if you actually lived with somebody like that, I don't think you'd get along with them too well. Okay, though, in short, so those are the things they don't want you to imitate. Number 3, never try to bottle up all of your emotions. Everyone needs time to talk through their thoughts. Well, of course, but I think this statement's a little bit misleading, because when you read something about, okay, it's good to share what you're thinking about, it's good to share your emotions. First and foremost, it is good to have an inner circle who is very strong and very supportive. I was once talking to somebody who was about 10 years older than me, back in 2017 or 18, thereabouts. I was around like 29 or something, and I was just asking somebody who was older for advice on life, and what she said was, the number one thing is get a strong inner circle. I mean, like people who are supportive, who actually want to listen to that, because if you just start running your mouth about your emotions to somebody on the street, they're gonna think that you are absolutely nuts. And be honest, if someone just comes over to you whom you don't really know and they're like, hey, how's it going? Oh my gosh, my life's so bad. That's something else that goes back to that. How do you know if somebody's crazy? I mean, okay, not crazy, but those are the things that tell you I need to stay away from this person because extreme changes in emotion, they're very nervous, they seem paranoid. Yeah, you get the idea there. So I think that firstly, find a good inner circle, then you can try to share your thoughts, feelings, and emotions, because it's almost naive to go out and just think, I'm going to try and share what I'm thinking and expect that other people are going to listen to you. Because that's really ties into the next points on the list, 4 and 5. Never try to give up on something because somebody tells you it's out of your reach. This one I absolutely agree with. People are going to criticize you. Long story short, people are going to criticize you. I just saw this in a meme on Facebook when somebody wrote out that if you're outgoing, people will criticize you. If you're quiet, people will criticize you. If you're a little bit of both, people will criticize you. No matter what you do, people will criticize you. And there are going to be naysayers out there that are going to tell you that you can't do that. Whether you want to be a professional athlete or you just want to be the assistant manager of a fast food restaurant, people are going to tell you you can't do that. Some people are extremely negative, some people are pessimistic, some people are just naysayers. And there are a couple psychological reasons for this. One of them is that someone is going to tell you that it's unrealistic because that person has already sorted out their life. Their life is already in place, and they get very envious of other people who have possibilities. But also, this relates to some of the questions that we've dealt with about narcissism over the past few weeks. The narcissist is going to put you down because they want to be the one who controls what you do. So if you're going to say, hey, I want to apply for this job to be the manager of a fast food restaurant, they're going to get very mad because it was your idea. If they are the general manager of a fast food restaurant, they're going to want you to be the assistant manager of said fast food restaurant because then they would be above you. They want you to be in a place in which they get to make the decisions for you. And in short, it's about controlling, it's about power tripping. Many things in life are actually about the desire and lust for power. So, yeah, never try to give up on something because somebody tells you it's out of reach. That one I completely agree with. The next one on the list is never get angry about how people think and speak. You can't change them. Okay, now, there is a very fine line between acceptance and conditioning someone for abuse. Never try to get angry about how people feel, think, and speak. You can't change them. This whole thing of, hey, you can't change people, you have to accept them as they are. Well, I mean, you should also encourage them to see a psychologist or a therapist so they can correct these problems in their life, that they can process their unhealed childhood traumas so they're not doing these destructive actions and these types of destructive behavior that are being classified as mental illnesses or being mentally ill. I don't really agree with this one completely because anytime someone is saying that you can't change people, accept them as they are, then that leads to conditioning someone to accept their abuse. Stefan Molyneux talked about this a lot, though, when he was saying that never get angry about how people feel, think, and speak. He differentiated between two types of anger. He called it the good type of anger and the bad type of anger. The bad type is outrage. The good type is non-acceptance. I mean, Eastern spirituality will completely discourage you from ever being angry about anything. And this good type of anger that he was talking about, he said it was simply non-acceptance. Like, so let's try this one again. Never accept when people get angry. Okay, I totally butchered that. It's like, do not accept how people respond to you. You can't change them. So if someone is going to be mad at you, or if someone is going to say something to you that is very nasty, do not accept it, but don't get outraged by it. I think that second try was a little better. Jesse Lee Peterson, who hosts the show The Fallen State, talks about this one a lot, though, when he says that people have expectations about how other people should act, like about how people feel, think, and speak. Look, you're going to say something to somebody, and then they're going to get really angry, and then you get angry because they got mad at you. In short, I mean, no one has any type of rule book where they have to follow when you say something that they have to respond in a certain way. So it's almost unfair to go through life and expect that people are going to behave in a certain way. Now, should they? Should they? Absolutely not. Like, I mean, they absolutely shouldn't be angry with you for saying, like, hey, how are you? And then someone starts shouting at you. I agree, that's bad. What he was talking about is having the expectation that everybody will be polite to you. And then when something violates the expectation, you get your feelings hurt. In short, it's more or less the same thing. Non-acceptance, but don't be outraged by it. And the number 7 on the list is never try to bring other people down. You will suffer in the long run. 100% agree. Even if it's something that's meant to be humorous, like rough humor. No, I don't. I also had to learn that lesson the hard way. Even rough humor that's bringing somebody down, it's not good. It'll make trouble for you in the long run. And as somebody once said on the Big Mood channel, actually, if you watch what you say, you will watch your life get better. Number 8, never try to forget that no matter how good you are at what you do, there is always someone better. Oh, I thought I was going to say something better. No, this says someone better. Okay. Well, No, I don't really think I agree with that too much. That's just conditioning people to expand desires. Number 9 is never try to go a full year without reading a book or learning something completely new. A year without reading a book or learning something new? Okay, I get that not a lot of people are into like hard paper books these days because of things like Kindle. I can even get that some people might go a year without reading a book, but if you go a year without learning something new, God help you. I mean, what kind of person goes a year without learning something new? I think most people would. It would be more. Maybe if they said, never try to go a day without learning something new, like there's a life lesson every day. But, well, I think that one is covered. And the last one, number 10 on the list, never try to let go of people who truly care about you. Oh, no, absolutely not. But I think back to a lot of my days in college, and I also think about how the 4 or 5 people I met there who were the best people in my life, or they were the highest quality friends that I had at the time. I'm not in contact with them anymore. And I think about that a lot. This is all about 10, 12 years ago. And I was like, wow, I really let some good friends go. And it's just because of, distance and moving to new cities and not keeping up with certain types of social media. I mean, we lost touch, we lost contact. And I didn't really realize just how good of a friend they were until 10 years after we stopped communication. You look back, I mean, this is also a good challenge question for you. When you look at your life and you think about how things are, I mean, how many people do you know whom you would say, wow, that person was a good friend. Wow, that person was like a really good friend for me. How many people can you think of? I said from my college years, maybe 4 or 5 people that I knew. But what would your response be to any of those things? And you can always answer any of the questions yourself. Anything about the Zodiac Killer, Missy Bevers, Jack the Ripper, or that stuff about The Simpsons and South Park and Family Guy. What do you have to say about any of the material that has been put here? And one more time, anybody can write the show at BlackBoxOnlineRadio at AOL.com, or you can write to the DMs at BlackBoxNet88 on Instagram. There's also a Facebook page that has been posted in the description box here. And I will see you guys on Instagram for the bonus podcast. Until next time.